Kia ora koutou, ko Brooke Roberts. I'm Brooke, one of the co-founders and co-CEOs of Sharesies, and really excited to be introducing Shared Lunch Kids Investing Series. Today, my conversation is with my mate Kendall Flutey, the co-founder of Banqer. We'll talk everything on how to teach your kids about money and how technology can help. But before we get started, here is some important information.
Investing involves risk. You might lose the money you start with. We recommend talking to a licensed financial advisor. We also recommend reading product disclosure documents before deciding to invest. Everything you're about to see and hear is current at the time of recording.
Well, thanks heaps, Kendall, for coming to tell us all about how to teach kids about money and what the lessons you've learned on your journey. Do you want to give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Totally. So I'm Kendall. No mai tau, no ngā te kahuna hoki, me koe te kahunga o Banqer. I'm based in Otatahi, Christchurch, my whānau from here and from up north. And yeah, I'm the co-CEO of Banqer, and we're all about financial education for our rangatahi.
What got you passionate about financial education for rangatahi?
I think it's always been in me somewhere. I highly suspect that's the case, but probably what brought it out overtly was I had been an accountant. It didn't really work out for me. Didn't really work out pretty quickly, which is a good thing. So I left my job there after just 6 months, and I retrained in software. Absolutely loved it, and just came home to relax and spend some time with the family down here, my little brother included. And I was in my 20s. He was 12 years old at the time, and he just blew me away this weekend by talking to me about something totally unexpected, which was employment structures. He was looking to hire someone, my 12-year-old brother. Yeah, and investment strategies. He was wanting to know how he can grow his proceeds from his successful business, and tax system. I don't know what he was trying to do there. I'm not gonna put that on the record, but he was probably trying to pay a bit less tax. And it turned out that his teacher, this was all fictitious money, and his teacher was teaching him about money at his school. And just in that moment, I realized that I never thought I could have these conversations with my brother. So I didn't proactively seek them out, but he was so capable of having them. And that was where sort of a penny dropped for me. And I caught up with his teacher the very next day before I flew back to Wellington. And the idea for Banqer was born, that we would take this amazing simulative system where the students acted out real life finances in the class. My brother actually had a chair stacking company, so he put all the chairs up every day before he went home, and if he had to be first in school, he was paid a couple $100 a week by the teacher. The system, but we'd automate it to make it more realistic of the digital financial world that my brother will enter and has now entered as a young adult, and also make life a bit easier for that teacher who's now my co-founder. And we built it in a weekend, and yeah, we've been growing it for the last 8 years since.
Wow, built it in a weekend to like 8 years. And so now that you've taken this insight from your brother and then their classroom to multiple classrooms across Aotearoa and Australia, what have been the lessons learned along the way in terms of your understanding of what kids can understand and pick up when it comes to money?
It's just sort of rewritten the whole rule book for me, really. I think a lot of us would think financial vocabulary is too difficult for students of that age. We probably start working in earnest with students at 10, but we've got a lot of students. We have support over 300,000 rangatahi, so students 7, 8 will start using our platform. I would have a 10-year-old run up to me when I'm at a school visit, and they'd start talking about their mortgages. So that's a term that they can say, they understand the definition of, and they understand the application of it. So a 10-year-old can grasp the concept of a mortgage. That blows my mind. Me 10 years ago would have thought, yeah, no way, you're kidding. They understand the concept of interest, and that's a really awesome building block for them, because when you tie the financial concept of interest onto numeracy and learning about percentages for the first time, it's like applied maths. So it actually makes the concept of learning maths easier. So their ability to grasp these concepts at a young age has been a really big learning for me. And also their appetite for it. They want to be informed, they want to be empowered, they want to be able to make decisions sooner. And it aligns with the real financial world. They are making decisions a lot sooner with the likes of our buy now, pay later technology, which isn't always an empowering tool. With the empowering tools like Sharesies, they're able to actually make financial decisions and take control of their financial future, and they're ready for that too. So I think those are the two big learnings for me, which really, when you amalgamate them together, create a really informed future financial consumer, which is a fantastic outcome.
And over the last 8 years, technology's changed, access to information or money opportunities have changed. Have you noticed that in the classroom, and are the conversations shifting at a faster rate than what they did 8 years ago?
There've just been a few punctuations, I think, of change. So we were very much so looking at teaching and having conversations with kids probably from 2015 to maybe 2020 about our fiat financial system. They were using it by pretty standard means, usually a laptop, maybe iPad, and that was it. The financial system was pretty static. From maybe 2019 to 2021, maybe last year, there was also this new interest in our other currencies, so alternative currencies, be it crypto or otherwise. And at the end of 2021, 2022, also talking about other forms of debt and access to debt, and just generally consumerism. And we had a lot more conversations about understanding the value of things versus even 3 years earlier. I think it's because there was a lot more consumption options for Banqer. And we saw some good stuff through there as well, like what you've enabled and empowered with Sharesies, where honestly, there's a stage that every second one of our high schools was talking about, alongside Banqer, we're opening Sharesies accounts for the kids, which is so fantastic to see that education in action and play together. So there's been some big punctuations with the likes of crypto, with the likes of buy now, pay later. And now obviously an emerging conversation anywhere you go is AI and the role that that's going to play in the future of our finances.
So we've just covered, like, you start, picking at, I need to talk to my kids about money, or I need to talk to kids in my life about money. And and then your mind's blown by all the places you could start. Like, where is the best place to start when you're thinking about how to talk to a child about money?
It's easy with them and their personality type. One of the biggest influences on us and our money isn't our knowledge. The knowledge is there. It's getting really easy to access knowledge. We've got some awesome tools. Not only us, there's the Retirement Commission have sorted in schools. A lot of financial providers like yourselves have a lot of knowledge-based tools available. But what we fail to recognise is we are forces of nature ourselves, and we psychologically have behaviours and values, and all of that is expressed through our finances. So when you're thinking about your child, think about who they are. Think about what their quirks are. Think about what they're going to find hard, what they're going to find easy, and make that your starting point. Then from there, once you've got that seed, look at your whānau. What are the financial realities for your whānau? What opportunities can you expose your kids to in an age-appropriate way? For example, we had a Banqer whānau. This Banqer kid came home. They were using it at primary school. They had an older sibling in secondary school, and they'd never used Banqer before, and mum and dad. And this kid came home and started talking about a personal loan they'd taken out. And this young kid was talking to the parents, and the parents were engaging, and they were sharing stories of when they'd taken out personal loans, which is such rich learning. And it wasn't all great, those stories, but the kid got to hear about those experiences, got to not only build knowledge, but got to analyze that experience. Like, there's a lot of conversations are complex. There's a lot of stuff happening there for kids when you're just sharing experiences and journeys. And the teenager was sitting there being like, what's a personal loan? Tell me about interest rates. Like, they didn't know any of this stuff. So when you start with the child and their curiosity and understanding their natural constraints and opportunities, and you put it in the context of your whānau, the world's really your oyster from there. You can start building out from there, but it has to be right for them. If you've got siblings, you'll know this, because there will be a spender, there will be a saver. You're not going to get the same results with the same textbook.
It's so true. You got to kind of trick that money personality. What about yourself though? Like when you go into those conversations, you come with your own money personality and your own expectations or understanding of money, and that you might have a lot of, you might feel really whakama when you think about money. There's a lot of taboo around it. You don't know if you're doing it right. How do you know that you're instilling the best way in a child to think about money, or make sure that they're money aware and not money hungry? Or how do you can you schedule load, or is it like you said, those final conversations of just sharing your experiences and what's worked for you and what's not?
I think they've totally got to be age appropriate. So like there are, and especially at the moment in Aotearoa, there's some really tough financial realities of whānau. So overburdening our rangatahi when they're not actually empowered to make change. They can't go out and earn extra income potentially, if they're 10 years old. That isn't the right way to go about it. But sharing age-appropriate experiences is. When it comes to us and ensuring that we're imparting the right financial knowledge onto the next generation, I'd start by asking, are you an advisor, or are you a coach, or are you just a learning buddy? Like, there's nothing wrong with learning together and framing it, you know what, I actually don't know this stuff. We're going to jump on Google, we're going to figure it out together. And that's cool. I don't actually need to have the answer. I just need to be there by your side as we figure it out together. That's a wicked scenario to be in. And taking that proactive step is more than 99% of people in the world do with their kids.
That's so true. And if we talk about age appropriate, maybe we break it down. So say preschoolers, early primary school, what are the kind of conversations that would be great to have at that stage?
So what at that stage is a couple of things. So not only conversations, the physicality of money is really important at that age. And this, I will preface it by saying this isn't a space that we play in intentionally, because we're a digital tool. So we know we're not perfect for that space. Physicality of money, research says, is so important because kids are learning that a physical object has an association with a monetary value. And if they can actually hold that not a physical object, there's a concept of money, it's easier for them to grasp in the form of this physical something. So coins and money are really important at that age, preschool, early primary. So your 3 jars stuff, there's a reason that people do that. There's a reason that works.
Can you tell me about 3 jar?
Yeah, sorry, I just take it. Yeah, this is the world I live in. So I'm like, everyone knows 3 jars. So you've got literally 3 jars, 3 money boxes, whatever. And one's for saving, one's for spending, and one's for giving. So it's a pretty cool concept. And every time a child is able to earn or receive money, so maybe birthday, Christmas, or maybe they're doing some chores around the house, or maybe they're just a lucky kid, they can determine which jar they want to put that in. And there can be a prearranged way in which those funds have to be distributed. So if you earn $4, 2 of it has to go and save, and 1 can go on the rest in either of the remaining, or it can be up to the kid. And that whole concept facilitates pretty much all the conversations you need to be having with that age group. So what is a need? What is a want? What is delayed gratification? I know that's like a mouthful. I feel like we need a more simple word when I'm saying you can talk to preschoolers about delayed gratification, but maybe just saving, right? What is generosity? What is financial success? I know that sounds silly, but a lot of kids will be motivated by seeing that jar fill up. But is that the only way we measure success? Or is actually it going down when we empty out the gift jar at Christmas time and go buy some presents for someone else? Is that success in itself? So I think if you think about the physicality of money for that age group, the 3 jars and those core conversations that those 3 jars can enable, that's a pretty good starting place.
Yeah, nice. And then that helps you understand too your child's money personality, but also help them understand how that can shift and change. If you see them all putting into the spend, it gets that conversation happening about saving and investing and giving, and vice versa too. So it physically shows you how they're thinking.
The thing about spenders, we're all spenders. Like, we are all spenders. We're all putting our money somewhere, but it's the horizon in which we spend it over. So if we see like a stereotypical spender, money comes in, money goes out, they get a fancy thing. And like, we all know someone like that. But a saver is actually spending in 3 years' time. They're just wanting a bigger lump sum to go buy a house or something like that. And or they're investing in their future for their retirement, where they're going to spend it all down. So I think you don't have to think of yourself as one or the other. They're kind of all the same function. The changeable variable is actually time and the horizons.
Yeah. And we will come back to that concept of delayed gratification, because that's where the marshmallow test, or for my child who doesn't like marshmallows, the chocolate test can come in. So we will cover that. So at that preschool, primary age, really making sure people have that, they can see coins and cash and start to see how that interacts in society a bit more. So how, bringing that into the home, and the 3-jar concept is a good way to help them understand how money flows with spending or saving, investing and giving, and its role in society in that way. So you're getting a bit older then, into later primary school, intermediate. What are some of the concepts that are really good? And this is obviously where the digital side can come into, and tools like Banqer and Sharesies and things can start to show up.
Totally, you're totally right. So the solid education phases, before they are necessarily engaging in the financial world in a big way. So they might have a bank account and a Sharesies account, but they don't have a KiwiSaver. They're not submitting tax returns. They're not buying a mortgage, taking out a mortgage, anything like that. So this is where you really want to start solidifying the education. And there's a few core concepts like compounding interest that I touched on before that actually they're so complementary to some other numeracy skills that we want our kids to be developing anyways. And then it's really pick off the relevant financial concepts to you and your whānau. So if you're renting, let's talk about renting. Let's talk about the rights and responsibilities of a tenant and a landlord. Let's talk about what our weekly rent is and how we fund and facilitate that. So then we start talking about our careers and income, different pathways. We can bring out a pay slip if still get pay slips. And we can just weave our way around the financial concepts in our lives and expose our kids to those and talk about those core financial concepts that underpin a lot of what will ultimately be financial decision making our kids need to make.
Yeah, and this is the time too where that disparity of the different incomes people have in their households and the different opportunities that show up with school and the extracurriculars and all that sort of jazz start to show up too. So how can you, if you're arming your child with or a child in your life with the pay slip and what that looks like, how can you safeguard those conversations too, where it can look so different for so many people?
So true. I think you don't necessarily need to safeguard them. You just need them to know that there's lots of different normals. Because we have stories from kids at some of New Zealand's most prestigious private schools who feel excluded in some ways as well financially because of their means. And then we have kids who have limited resources and low socioeconomic areas who also feel excluded. So I don't necessarily think there's a wrong financial position to be in. It can be really tough for whānau to talk about that, and I acknowledge and totally respect that. But what we're thinking about is intergenerational change and empowerment through education. So if you don't want to bring up your pay slips, totally do not have to. But the concept of learning about earning income is a core financial concept that every kid is going to need to go about learning so that they can actually make decisions about their financial future. What I do say to some whānau who, I guess we've got to acknowledge culturally talking about money is difficult in New Zealand still for a lot of peeps. What I can say to them is if you're not ready to have those conversations yourself or with your partner or with your friends, then by all means, you do not have to have them with your kids. But if there's anyone in your whānau or anyone in your friend group that is in that place and at that time where they can have those conversations, then bring them into the fold, because everyone's got a story to tell and an experience to teach and share. And it doesn't have to be you. Like, you don't have to be the the one to impart all the financial wisdom of this world onto your child. It takes more than just one of us to change this intergenerational issue of financial literacy.
It's so true. And then with that payslip, it's amazing what is just on that one piece of paper for that learning aid with tax and how that works. KiwiSaver.
Student loans.
Yeah, then the employer topping up the KiwiSaver and having conversation about that. So, I really like your message there. It doesn't have to be you if it's not, you're not the one comfortable doing that, but if there's someone in your wider whānau or friend group that could be really supportive. And
for me, for a lot of the time, it was my granddad. And I spent a lot of time with him. It's in school holidays, and he was very open, and I learned so much from him. And then eventually conversations started at my home with my parents as well. But that wasn't the genesis of the conversations, because the time wasn't right, and the circumstances weren't right for those conversations to come out. So it doesn't have to be you, but facilitating that is so empowering in itself.
With your grandparent there, what was do you have any ways that they spoke to you that really connected, or games that they did, or is there anything, memories that really stick out?
One memory, it doesn't really translate to today's day and age very well, but I literally remember sitting on my granddad's knee with the newspaper open, looking at share prices and being like, what is that? Like, I don't know, maybe I was 8 or 9, and there was just codes and numbers going up and down. And he explained the concept of a share, and he explained it in really accessible words that, so they lived on a farm, so used literally units of sheep. We'd been out in the shearing shed that day, like rustling up the sheep. So, think of our farm as 10 sheep. If someone wants to buy a part of our farm, they can they own a sheep technically. And if they want to sell that sheep to someone else, they can give them the bit of paper that says you now own the sheep. And that really, that really resonated and stuck with me.
That is such an awesome lesson. And that physicality again brought into it in terms of like an analogy that really related to something that you could see and understand, and bring the concept of, owning a company or owning a share to life through the farm. Love that. Totally. And then if we skip on to high school, what are some of the money concepts that high schoolers really need to understand and be great for them to have more, financial capability with?
So assuming that we've had like this continuous learning experience. So if not, it's never too late to catch up, like what I would preface it with. So if you didn't do the foundational stuff at primary, never too late. You can be 16 and learn about that stuff, all good. But our secondary school kids, they're starting to engage with the financial world in a very real way. They're using Sharesies hopefully regularly. They are very tempted to use Afterpay and other buy now and pay later technologies. They are maybe having their first job, like starting their first job and opening a KiwiSaver account. So what we really need to start doing now is making sure that they can analyze the right financial tools and technologies for them. So if they've got that core knowledge at the age and stage, they're thinking about what financial success means for them and what steps they need to be taking today to enable that. And it's so hard. It's so hard for all of us, but we can't see beyond double our age. It's really hard for me to imagine. I'm 32, so a 64-year-old Kendall. Beyond that is quite hard. But think about it, a 13-year-old, they can't imagine beyond 26 years themselves. So forget thinking about KiwiSaver and retirement, but we have to support them in facilitating thinking beyond those horizons. And then it's really about them engaging with the real financial world. So what we do is we simulate that so they get to practice, because behaviours are where we really start to ingrain our financial capability. It's by practicing. A lot of the time we have to practice in the real world, suboptimal. So if you can be there alongside them when they're looking at what ETF is right for them, and maybe it is ETFs instead of single share trading because of X, Y, and Z, or maybe you're just making sure they're right-sizing their investments, or they are picking the right KiwiSaver for their risk tolerance. That's the sort of role I think that parents should play during those secondary school years.
So you become, the coach with them, supporting them and setting good habits for their life going forward.
Definitely.
Yeah. And yeah, you do get it. Their first job can happen in that time, getting access to KiwiSaver.
Maybe buying a car,
right? Yeah.
Big purchase. Yeah, a lot happens in those transitional years.
Yeah. And it's also a time where they start, once they're 18, they get to exposed to a whole area of debt in the finance industry too. I remember someone in my family was at high school and they turned 18 in their last year of high school, and there was a buy now pay later. Oh no, sorry, not buy now pay later. A payday lender
really?
right outside their school. And so they were stoked. They got $50 handed in their laptop. They didn't understand the concept of interest on that $50 and the downward spiral that they could create. They just thought, oh, I've got $50, go do something with my friends and I'll pick up my laptop and next week and get it. And I saw this piece of paper from the payday lender, and I was just mortified that I hadn't had this conversation with them, or that they had no idea. And so it was really good. I did catch that really early on, but that's another part that you really want to set up the when they're in high school, they're about to leave school too, just really understanding debt too, and the impacts it can have. And
totally. And that's like predatory behaviour.
Yeah.
School,
I'm hoping that doesn't happen anymore. I hope that lenders
it happens in other ways now. It happens digitally. There's a lot of different offerings through social media. And we've also got to remember the general pressure of consumerism that is weighing down on our rangatahi as well, thinking that they need to consume these things to fit in, or I think it's the extent to which that pressure shows up today is far greater than when I was their age. So keeping that wider context in mind of why not your students, I'm so used to working with students, why your child may be feeling they have to do these things, and trying to be really respectful through that friction and tension, because beyond financial literacy, there's a lot happening in those years, and sometimes it's just hard to connect with your young one, let alone connect and talk positively about money. So yeah, being mindful of who they are, their personality, which we started way back when they were a little toddler, and keeping in mind the various pressures on them, whether visible to you or invisible because they're happening digitally through the likes of social media.
Yeah. So with your 8 years of experience and more, obviously, during life, what are some of the things that you've heard come out of kids' mouths that you're just like, oh, I wish they didn't think that way about money, or have that, that way of thinking, essentially?
I'm hearing a lot less of that kind of stuff now, which is amazing. So I actually do think there is this momentum building. I don't know what's happened in the last few years. It's probably a number of different good actors in this space, which is so rad. One of the things that used to break my heart was perceived ceilings because of current circumstances. So a kid that thinks, oh, nah, our family doesn't do that, when I'm not going to be that. And that's probably been ingrained over multiple generations, because that doesn't just happen out of nowhere. No kid wants to think like that. No parent wants their kid to think like that. No parent wants to think like that. So when, kids will say something like, no, I can't go to uni, and so I'm not going to take up that career path, so my salary is going to be this, or I can't invest in the real world, so I'm not going to bother on Banqer, or I can't buy a house. We've never bought a house. I don't know anyone who's bought a house. That sort of deficit thinking, and you totally understand the place it comes from. But that's really heartbreaking when people already, as young as 10, have that ceiling on themselves. It's pretty hard. Thankfully, these days I'm hearing more of the inverse. Like, man, my mum's worked so hard. She works 3 jobs, and I'm gonna buy us a house on that. Like, that, love it. I love that. I love those 10-year-old kids, and I love what sits behind that, like a really empowering parent who is thinking about the next generation and supportive of their kids' journey, and they're putting out good vibes, and there's obviously good conversations happening at that household. So yeah, sort of hear it all, but I'm glad that proportionately showing more really empowering stuff these days.
Yeah. And what are some of the other things that you hear out of kids' mouths that really excite you about the future, and that there will be an increase in financial capability, and the intergenerations will be more financially empowered than what we've seen in the past?
So I've got a couple of fun stories. They sort of tread the line of like, is it going to be good? What is this kid going to do in the future? Like, is it going to be bad? But I think they show a curiosity and an underlying understanding of the financial concepts to be able to do what these kids were doing. So the first story is I went to a local kura here actually and was at the office, and the student who'd been sent to collect me, it's always my favourite part. They come and stand really awkwardly and I'm like, hello. On the walk back, I broke the ice, and on the walk back to the classroom, he started telling me that he was the richest in the class. Stoked for Tyson. Good work, Tyson. How did you earn your riches, Tyson? I said, well, I've saved all my salary. I've never bought anything at the class auctions. They had a class auction one every week where you could buy like a seat on the couch or reduced homework. Never bought into that. And then when some kids in the class, and then what he'd do, but at the class auction, he would bid up the price for his peers. So some of his kids may have bid and won some items that they couldn't afford. Then in would swoop Tyson with, did he have a loan opportunity for that child at a reasonable interest rate, actually pretty reasonable, like more microfinancing, good interest rates. And he'd sit back and he was currently raking.
He became a bank.
Yeah, so the way in which his mind must be ticking over as, that was year 5, so what are we talking, 11? As an 11-year-old is incredible to stitch all those concepts together. A little opportunistic. I wouldn't say predatory, but he was playing a game, right? That really excites me. That's pretty cool. The second story, equally, it treads that same line, is a school up in Tamaki in Auckland, actually, where, I'd never been to this school before. It was a different kind of school. It was called, I turned up and there was one kid, like they were making their own, they had this like outdoor fire pit and they were making some tools and stuff. So a very different school. And there was a class of about 25 kids. And one of the students told me that they were the class lottery. And I said, what do you mean you're the class lottery? And they said, yeah, no, every week I put on a lottery for everyone and everyone buys a lotto ticket and then I draw out numbers. And I was like, can we do a class lottery? He's like, yeah, it's supposed to be tomorrow, but we can do it now. All good. And so they then started what was a 6-ball lottery. And if you know statistics, or even if you don't, sometimes in New Zealand with 5 million people, our 6-ball lottery doesn't get won. So in a class of 25 kids, that lottery is never going to be won. This kid was just sitting on a gold mine. So there's like the creative thinking and enterprise that goes in. We've got kids who make the teacher a cup of tea every morning and have it on their desk to earn an extra $50. The enterprise that sits behind these kids really excites me, alongside the acknowledgement for the hard work of parents. I've cried in one banking classroom. They're often sitting there just behind the eyes, but only once have they broken through. It was this very simple, short conversation, but this was a young class, maybe 9 years old. A girl came up to me and she said, last night, gave my mum a big hug because I know how hard it is to earn money now. And she had, I think there were 6 kids, so she had 5 siblings. She's like, I don't know, like, I never realized how hard it was to earn money, and my mum always makes money for us. So it's cool to see that appreciation coming through.
That is so great for that mum to feel that value to her when she went home, like, yay, that's a breakthrough. And such a great lesson for life too. And those young entrepreneurs coming out of this is really cool. Is there anything else you'd want to share in terms of teaching kids about money?
I think it's just really reinforcing that can be a learning experience for you too. Like, when I think about teaching kids money, I don't really think that I'm teaching them. I'm just like, we're learning together and we're discovering. And I learn new things when I hear them talking in crazy creative ways about money. So don't feel like you have to be the master. This isn't that kind of relationship, I don't think. If you don't want it to be, it can just be like learning together and sharing your experiences and coaching them and encouraging their personalities and values to shine through. And the only other disclaimer I put on when talking to anyone is, if you've got these intentions and you've got these lesson plans and if you are advising your child and have more of that traditional teacher approach, your kids are watching you. And if you're then blowing your money on things that aren't needs, that will speak more loudly than any words. So I think if you want this to be meaningful, there's going to be a period where it might be tough, but you have to walk a little bit of the walk as well. And that can be quite confronting in itself, but being aware that your kids are watching you financially and seeing how you spend your money and how your financial values come through and what financial success means to you, knowing that that's all happening is a pretty important part of the equation.
Kia ora. Well, thanks so much, Kendall, for your time today and sharing your incredible learnings from the 3,000 rangatahi and so many more that you're impacting. Thanks heaps for all that you're doing in terms of increasing financial empowerment in rangatahi, and I'm really excited about the future of Aotearoa with more people having access to this knowledge and being able to think differently and have more positive relationship with money, and hopefully with that have more opportunity and more equitable opportunities.